The United States and Russia are engaged in high-level talks over Ukraine. Washington and its allies are concerned over a potential invasion by Moscow. But Moscow says the heightened tensions are in response to aggression by NATO and Kyiv. Julia Chapman joins us live from Moscow. Julia, going into the talks, expectations of a breakthrough were slim on both sides. Is that still the sense?
That certainly is. We've heard from the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who says no breakthrough is expected, although he's hoping that dialogue will lead to some sort of progress. And there were tough lines from the Russian side as well, with the chief negotiator for Russia, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, saying there will be no concessions on Russia's demands. And Russia has put forward a very ambitious wish list of demands that it has for both the United States and for NATO more broadly. There will, of course, be NATO-Russia talks later in the week. Russia wants them to commit to never expanding NATO to include Ukraine specifically and other former Soviet countries. Russia also wants to see the military bloc promise not to position offensive weapons in Eastern Europe, among other demands. And of course, these are very unrealistic from the point of view of the West. From the United States perspective, it wants to see Russia back down from a buildup of troops on the Ukrainian border, one that it has intelligence about, but that hasn't been acknowledged by Russia. And Russia says it has no intention to invade its neighbor. So certainly the two sides are coming from very different starting points. There are some areas where there might be room for negotiation, but the leaders of these negotiations, the deputy foreign ministers, are trying to see if there is any way that they can find some sort of common ground to prevent an escalation of tensions in Europe.
And to add to those challenges, there's a controversy over the European Union's absence at the negotiating table.
That's right. There has been frustration in Brussels that they have been left out of these talks because they believe that they are going to be directly implicated by any outcome. Of course, Russia and the United States have been directly negotiating. Russia put these demands forward specifically to Washington and NATO, leaving the European Union out of it. But I think more controversial than the exclusion of the European Union is the exclusion of Ukraine itself. Russia hasn't been engaging in direct dialogue with Ukraine. There have been very limited opportunities for that in recent years. And certainly Russia seems to believe that the U.S. is the partner to negotiate with when it comes to security guarantees that it wants to be met. But that has led to some frustration, of course, in Kyiv, which has expressed a point of view that nothing should happen about Ukraine without Ukraine. And certainly the United States has committed to involving its Ukrainian partners in any kind of negotiations that it will be making with Russia. It's not being left out of the conversation entirely, but it is definitely not a country that is involved particularly in these talks today.
Julia Chapman in Moscow. Thank you.